Hey guys, it's Blackjack with 396 Guitars. We have an acoustic Fender. It is a DG8S on the bench. He's got a couple of issues. Cracked headstock. The bridge is actually delaminating from the body of the guitar. We're going to look at this. We're going to do a deep dive on it. Come along for the ride. Let's get to work. So I think I have everything in the movie. Now, the crack in the headstock is not going to come out on the camera, and I'm not even going to try to show it. Well, maybe I will. I don't know if the camera will pick that up. Oh yeah, there it is. There is a crack in the headstock right below the two tuning pegs closest to the fretboard. You can just make it out there. That was the main concern. Of course, when he told me about it, and he said, but it doesn't bother, it's not moving, I'm going to keep playing it. Well, I said, don't play it like that, because the string tension is going to continue to pull on the headstock, and eventually that crack is going to do something bad. A crack in the headstock is never good. It's always a bad day. Probably dropped it or somebody stepped on it, who knows. At least it didn't come out of the joint down here, and that's usually the place where it breaks. And it's always really close up here. It's always somewhere across here or across here, and that particular one, as you saw, where it is. It did not go all the way through to the edge anywhere. It's really right in it, but it's really close to these tuning pegs. So I've been talking with the customer, and this is actually a really nice little guitar. It's not an expensive guitar, but that doesn't matter. You know my mantra. Every player deserves to have their instrument play as well as it can possibly play. I've said it a million times. You've heard me say it. You know that's becoming my mission statement. I have played this guitar. It actually has quite a nice resonance for an entry-level or mid-level acoustic guitar. It is a Fender, but it's an Asian. I insert Asian country here where it was manufactured. I don't know. What we have is back here. Let me get my 4000s. That's the one I usually try to slide in there. It's about the thickness of a... Alright, where did you go? Is it out here already? Oh, there it is. Sorry. 4/1000 of an inch feeler gauge. Right there. Right there. Right there. You can see how far that's going in. It's not horrible, but if you can slide anything under there, see there, it's even worse on this side. You can really see it there. I am not going to pull this entire bridge off, because the repair of heating that up, getting it off of the guitar and replacing it or re-laminating it, re-gluing it is going to cost more than the guitar is worth. But what we're going to do anyway is we're going to knock all the strings off. We're going to pull these two tuners out. We have to repair the headstock, which is going to be injecting some CA glue into the crack while I have someone help me spread that crack open just enough, the fracture, to inject some CA glue in there, and then we're going to have to clamp it down and hold it tight. Now, we probably will not be able to film all of that, but you can kind of get the idea. Also, geez, I don't know. I mean, all the windings look good here. He just strung it up by himself, and he didn't do a horrible job. Not a great job, but not a horrible job. I've seen much worse. But man, these bridge pegs are, it looks like they're almost hammered down into the guitar. So I'm gonna qualify what I said earlier, that I may not, I'm going to try not to change this whole bridge piece. I'm going to try to inject some glue in there and clamp it down to refasten it to the face of the guitar. And you got to remember, or the top of the guitar, these springs are trying to pull up on that bridge, which it's already loose here, and over the life of the guitar, eventually it's going to continue to pull over. If I ordered some new bridge pegs for him, I'm going to hope that these are not so whopped out of shape. I can see where he's a mechanic, and he got in there with a pick and didn't have the right tool and didn't know how to pop those out of there, and he got in there and it was grinding on them. So that could be a problem, and we may end up having to get a new bridge for it, but I'm pretty sure I can get away without that. There is a way, even if these holes are too big, to shim these, kind of put a wedge around them. It's not a perfect fix, but as I said, for this guitar, the repair of pulling this off and putting a new bridge on there, and I'm going to have to cut the saddle anyway because the string height is, well, damn, really high. Twice as high as it needs to be. And the weird thing is the first fret action is good and the neck relief is good. So everything is happening right back here. Now, part of that is because it's lifting up and it's causing the string action to be too high, but guaranteed we're going to have to pull that saddle out and cut it down, sand it down, and drop that string action down to where he's, I mean, they're just, oh my goodness, they're so high. But I know I can fix this, and I know I can make him really happy with this guitar. I'm hoping the only misnomer is whether we have to change the bridge, and that's a whole different repair. I've already spoken to the customer. He's authorized me to go ahead with the notes that I've making so far, which is fix the crack. I'm going to try to save these strings because he just put them on. They're Diodarios of some sort. He paid for one set what I ordered 3 sets for. That is what it is. But I told him if I have to throw these away and start fresh because of all the work that I have to do and put a new set on, I'm going to give him a free set to take with him, so at least he's not losing out on the money that he paid for those. So that all being said, I have already cleaned up the guitar because while I was waiting for him to get back with me on all the notes that I took for this job, I said, well, why not? He's a good customer. I have worked on other guitars of his. He has an American-made Fender Stratocaster that has been through the ringer, and he didn't know what to do with it, and I fixed that guitar up for him, sent it back to him, and it's his #1 instrument now. So he wants me to do the same thing with this. And this is a really nice little Fender Acoustic. It's got a lot of resonance. I promised him that I'm going to do my best, and I think we can get there. I'm going to pause briefly while I get some tools to pull. I'm going to at least loosen all the strings and dangle them back here and tie them together because I have to pull these machines out in preparation for repairing the headstock. That is the first and foremost. We have to repair the headstock. If we can't do that, then there's no point in going forward. So stand by. Okay, we're right back with you. So we're just going to knock all these strings off because I want to get at least these 2 machines completely removed because that's about where the crack is on the backside. So let's get that done. And I'm going to try to save these strings, but I'm changing the bridge pegs anyway, and I don't think these strings are going to make it, but we'll see. And again, I have cleaned up this guitar already while I was waiting for him to call me back, but we're beyond that point. These are Diodario copper something or others, but they seem to be really nice strings, and they, like I said, this guitar has a lot of nice resonance to it. I played with it a little bit, even though the string action, you could drive a car underneath that, the string action on this thing. it sounds pretty cool. And I know I can make this thing sound really nice. As long as the headstock cooperates and we can get it glued and repaired to where it's not going to go any further than it is. As I said, I'm going to try to save these strings, but I'm not making any promises. He did leave just enough sticking through that if we can get the new pegs in and save these strings, we will. You know, he left just enough for me to put them back through there. Once you cut them off tight and you've locked them in properly, it's just a heartache. You're never going to get them back through there. And it seems like he did a pretty decent job stringing it up. He had them all. He did my lock-in. He must have looked at the last guitar I worked on for him, and he copied exactly what I do when I string up a guitar with these type of machine heads, these tuning heads, and he copied it almost to a T. There could have been a few more wraps, but I give him credit for trying. And trying to do it correctly. I don't know why it's such a mystery restringing a guitar for some people, but it is. And I understand it can be, but everything seems tight here. Now we're going to remove, at the very minimum, these two tuning pegs, because that's right where the crack is, just above them. The next thing I'm going to do in this video is set this neck in a straight condition. I don't want it hanging around. This could take a while, this repair that we're going to attempt on this guitar. Repairs, I should say, plural. And I don't want this thing sitting around with a back bow or a banana in it. I'm going to set it in a straight condition. It's pretty close to straight right now, but not acceptable enough. I want to get it even straighter. I'm going to get my bionic eyes on here. Down in here, what do we got? Yeah, okay. Stand by. Bear with me. Now, this is a Fender, and you would think that it would be standard, but they rarely are, because this one was actually an Asian manufacturer licensed by Fender. I'm going to guess it's a 4. I don't know if this is going to be long enough to get in there, and it is not. It is a 4, and it's way in there. Oh boy. Oh boy. I'm going to pause for a second. Alright, I'm back. The truss rod seems to be working. I don't have a long this is way in there. But I was able to use a pair of pliers on it. I just want to double check if we're getting enough straightness. Yeah, we're straight. I got about an eighth or a quarter of a turn that way. And the truss rod moves freely, so I know we'll be able to set the neck relief later. I like that. We've got a little bit of wobble down here, but that's to be expected where the fretboard is laminated to the neck. But very little. I mean, I've seen Les Pauls with more wobble than that. And we're looking like we are really straight on this side, and I'm going to go just another skosh of a turn. really want to make sure that that's straight or close to just where it borders a backbow. And that last little turn took some of that wobble out of there. So we know the truss rod is working. So, of course, we have a dirty fretboard. I already cleaned the body, sides, front, back. We're going to get into taking this apart next. We don't need that in there. We know it's a 4mm, and I kind of knew that was coming. All right, so that looks like a, I'm going to call it a 13, no, 12 of that, 10. Yup. Let's just see how tight they really are. Oh, we're good. Come right loose. Got one screw in the back. Guess I better keep my bionic eyes on today for this dismantle. Bear with me, folks. I've got parts for the Paul Stanley guitar in that bowl. This bowl is going to be the next contestant on the hardware. Let's see how bad these screws are. Really loose. Looks like there's still plastic on there. There's sure enough there is. Guy's had the guitar for years. He never pulled the plastic off. That's loose. That's loose. These are all loose. Oh my God, that one wants to turn. Okay. Well, we'll get to that when we get to the full setup on this guitar. Let's get the hardware off in the bowl. And of course, when I'm dismantling a guitar, everything goes into one bucket. If I need to separate things, I do. There's our crack right there. I don't know, is the camera picking up on that, but it literally starts from that screw hole, goes right across here in a squiggly line, going from Manhattan to New Jersey, down here. And if we put just a little bit of pressure, we're going to be able to inject some CA glue in there and fix this thing. I am confident. Don't be afraid. I've done this before. I know I can save this guitar, but if you leave that crack on there and just ignore it and keep playing, sooner or later something really bad is going to happen and your whole weekend is going to be ruined. I'm going to keep these tuner pieces together. These tuning machines come off. I love these kind because they actually, the bushing threads down into the tuning machine and it locks it in place. Now again, these things do not need to be super tight, but they need to be snug. And seems like they're all moving a little bit. The nut's tight, but they're moving. So we're going to fix that later on. Got a nice ding there and delaminating. Boy, this guitar, they treat it like a red-headed stepchild. Let me see with my hairy eyeball if that crack comes through there at all. Don't think so. If I remember right, the crack goes across here. Let's take one more look at that. Yep. Goes from this peg hole, which is the high E string, that stops. It looks like it stops right there. Yeah, that thing is really flexing. We got to get some CA glue from this point. From here, is the camera getting that? I hope so. From here to here. Now, that is unlikely because some of this finish may have to be peeled away, but if I can get it in the mate, this is the really bad part of the crack over here. And it's definitely going to take two people to do this, because against every fiber of my being, we have to flex it open and inject with the smallest little syringe that I have and get some CA glue down into that crack, because as I said, it hasn't broken the surface or the front part, the face there or over here, but it has reached, and I even see slightly right there. But yeah, oh yeah, there's some flexing going on there, which means there's probably a cavity here. The right way to fix this, if this was a high-end guitar, we would have to sand this all down, clean this up, inject CA glue in there, and we would have to put and router out a couple of hardwood pegs to put in there so that it binds this portion of the crack and this portion of the crack together. And I might be able to get away with one, but in this price range guitar, that kind of repair is not in the cards. If this was a real Les Paul or something that, you know, has some high-end value to it, that's the kind of repair we would do. We'd literally have to router this out and put a peg in there, glue it, sand it all down, refinish it. It's a lot of work and a lot of repair, but I think on this one we can save this guitar, we can save this headstock, we can repair the bridge, and the saddle can be cut down and get this guitar playing properly for what it is. I'm confident. Thanks for coming along. This is part one of the Fender Acoustic. We took it apart, we got the headstock apart, we showed the crack, I undid the strings. I'm going to try to pull these out. I'm not going to show that in the video because it could be unsettling to watch how I do this. And I'm worried that might just pop off, and if it does, this guy's in for a big surprise, but I'm pretty sure I can get them out. It's Blackjack with 396 Guitars. Thanks for coming along. We'll talk soon.